Well, so we have some farmers with us. I don't know if you can see on the screen, but my roommates, Andrew and Sophie, are calling in from a farm not too far away from Houston. And there's Keenan and Jocelyn with them as well. So they've got, yeah, the whole crew over there. The gang's all here. So this morning, we are going to be diving right back into the Justice for Black Farmers Act. We started talking about this just as soon as I found out about it in November of 2020. And I'm personally very passionate about farming, agriculture, permaculture, all the good things. So particularly lit up all my buttons. But today we are specifically going to be illustrating some postcards to send to our representatives. This is going to be going through the Senate first. But of course, we want to kind of overview the bill, especially for our new students today, and talk about what this bill is all about, why it matters. And then we'll be going step by step through illustrating our postcards. So I think everybody's already got your art supplies out or around. And one thing I want to just mention is that something really cool about the mail is like postcards don't necessarily have to be like typical postcard sized. So I took some watercolor paper just because it's a little stiffer. You could also use like mixed media paper, maybe construction paper, something a little bit heavier than regular just computer paper. And I cut those into small pieces. So any size will do. If it's bigger or slightly smaller than your typical postcard, that's fine. So
you happen to research what the maximum size is before the stamp has to go larger?
Before the stamp goes larger?
Yeah.
No.
Like what's the maximum size?
Yeah, I would aim for, you know, let's see.
No, there's actually a rule.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I don't know what it is. But usually I think it's by weight more than size, but I have no idea. But my little postcards are going to be smaller, so that's fine. If you have like a regular size sheet of paper, you could cut that in quarters or in half. But before we get to the postcards, let's talk about the bill. So y'all are going to hear me talking a whole lot. I'd love it if I could turn it over to our returning students, especially, just to overview. What do you know about the bill? What's your understanding of what it's all about? And yeah, anybody want to pop in on that?
Okay, so the notes that I have from November 20th basically is that we're not about changing minds and hearts, we're about changing policy. And it's kind of part of it is reparations, which is a formal apology, financial reparations, land reparations. We want influence to elect officials who will help to change the policy. We want to research and support the Justice for Black Farmers Act by really understanding each part of it and then doing postcards that will help point to specifics in the act that our legislature, our officials might not be focused on. That's not telling you exactly what's in the act, I'm sorry to say.
Oh, that's great though. And it's great you actually mentioned the hearts and minds versus policy. That came up in our roommate conversation one day not long after that conversation. And that's definitely not a hard and fast rule. That was a suggestion by Ibram X. Kendi, but I think both are very important to focus on. And of course, with the artwork, definitely one thing we are aiming to do is to kind of get an emotional reaction with some beautiful artwork, and then hopefully see the policy change as well because of that. Any other, yeah, Carol, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a few statistics that stuck in my mind about what the unfairness was, that at a certain point, I think you said it was around 1920, the proportion of farms owned by Black people was proportional to the population. And that has since gone from, I think, that 14% that was proportional to something like only 2%. So it shows how the racist policies kept working through the decades to basically push Black farmers off with terrible, and the mechanism for doing that was financial. I mean, sometimes it was scare tactics, but they had a lot of power of the purse with the banks and the USDA, which the Black people called the last plantation because they were treated so unfairly. They were given loans that were too small and too late to do what they knew, because they were knowledgeable. The people have presented them as not knowledgeable, but they were very knowledgeable. But they then didn't have the money to plant in time and get the equipment repaired, et cetera, et cetera. So then each year, they would be considered a worse loan risk and they would get less money and more collateral, et cetera. So it was a downward spiral controlled by the white local boards that operated under the USDA.
And I don't know whether you all read the article that I posted, but it's still going on.
Yes. Judith had posted, was it a statistic about the cents per dollar earned? Is that the one you were talking about?
No, the one right after that was the article in the New York Times about how Black farmers are still not getting the loans that white farmers are getting.
Mhm.
They're still getting them later. They're getting less. It's all still going on.
Can you put that in our anti-racist? Because I haven't seen
I
it yet.
did about a week or two ago.
Cool. I'll be sure to go back in and
I'll look for it.
pin that one because unfortunately, yes, it is still going on. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick and just overview really specifically, and thank you both, great review. It's great that y'all are even remembering some of the statistics of why this bill is so important. So this is directly from Cory Booker's website, and he is the one who has proposed this bill along with Elizabeth Warren and Gillibrand. So what's amazing about this bill is it's looking backward, it's focused on the present, and it's also considering how we can build up Black land ownership and farm ownership specifically in the future. So step number one, and this is what we've talked about in our last couple of classes in particular, is this bill's looking to end discrimination within the USDA. And there is just an absolutely stomach-turning amount of evidence about discrimination in the USDA in the past. If you haven't heard a lot about this, I really highly recommend watching or listening to the podcast 1619. This Land is Our Land is a two-part series or podcast on specifically farmers in New Orleans or in Louisiana who went through a lot of what Carol was talking about, getting loans too little too late, even though they were award-winning farmers in their area. And they eventually found evidence that it was very clearly racially motivated discrimination on the part of the bank that didn't want to lend to them. But in one of the other classes in the past we've had, we talked about how the USDA is known as the last plantation. And that nickname came from Black farmers who basically said, the last place you want to go if you need to get a loan, if you need to help your farm, is the USDA, because they're basically going to treat you, just like they would have in slavery times, like just even stories and lawsuits brought in of local branches spitting in people's faces, just the most dehumanizing, awful treatment you can imagine. So this bill would create an equity commission and put in safeguards to help make sure that not only are cases heard that are looking at discriminatory practices, but also, things like in the past, one thing that's happened over and over again is a farmer will have a suit in progress claiming, discrimination. By the time that they win their case, the land has already been taken from them and sold off to someone. And even though they were in the right, they were able to show like, hey, this was my land, there was discrimination. They can't get their land back. It's already too late. So there would be freezes on that sort of thing happening. Protecting remaining Black farmers from land loss. And this is something that I'm researching even more into lately. How are Black farmers losing all of their land? And I'm going to quote back some of the statistics that Carol had mentioned. So in 1920, almost 1 million farmers, 925,000 Black-owned, there were 925,000 Black-owned farms. That was about 14% of US farms. And at the time, there were around 10% of the US were African American. So pretty close to what the representation of the population was. By 1975, that's dropped to less than 50,000 farmers. So we're down to less than 1% of rural landowners are Black. And that is not because all these people of color just decided they didn't want to farm anymore. This is due to many different factors. In my research, what points to, why this land has been lost, we have systemic discrimination. Also, there was a lot of industrialization that happened in that time that lured workers into factories when they realized how difficult, when an upward battle it was going to be. We had the Great Migration, the movement of 6 million Black Americans to the North between 1916 and 1970. And then one thing that we haven't talked a lot about is Ayers Property. So Ayers Property is something, I'm going to switch over to Wikipedia. So this is a legal term in the US for land that was left without like a specific heir in mind. So if somebody dies and doesn't leave a will, then the property kind of just gets passed down generally to anyone who might have a claim with it. And this is what's the leading cause of involuntary land loss among African Americans. So the reason that this would happen more and more with African American communities is they were facing so much discrimination in the court system that they felt like it was going to be safer not to have to go through the will process. They were really getting screwed over in that way. And so for a while, it seemed like this was going to keep their land safer. In the end, there are so many loopholes for developers to come in and take their land out from under them. This has been a huge problem. So according to the USDA, since 1910, the Ayers Property system has been responsible for African American landowners losing 80% of the farming land owned by previous generations. So this is one of the main ways that land has been lost, among others. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. So this bill has protections in place to help keep that from happening. And as I'm going through all of this information and these statistics, you might just want to be keeping in mind or taking notes like, what do you want to write in your postcard? Which of these issues really stands out to you as to why you want to write your representatives and say, hey, this bill is important. This is why we need this bill. So just keeping that in mind. So something really exciting that we haven't gotten to yet is what this bill does for the future. And one of the biggest things is that there's going to be an equitable land access service newly created where up to 160 acres will be granted to aspiring and existing Black farmers. So Black farmers who apply for these grants and loans are going to be able to get up to 160 acres. What's even cooler is that there's going to be, yeah, Carol, go ahead.
Where is this land going to be carved out from? Does it say anything about that?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, this is something that might be problematic. I have been reading that Indigenous communities are really concerned that the land is going to come from their piece of the pie, basically. So that's something that I think we do need to continue to research and figure out, like, how do we make sure that we're not just dispossessing another community that has already been, discriminated against and whose land has been stolen. But the USDA will be buying up land just that other farmers are looking to sell, and putting it into this pie. So
Okay.
that's a great question. We need to continue to look into that for sure.
Okay.
But yeah. So not only is land going to be granted to new farmers, there's also going to be training set up and grants for people who might not have any farming experience to start learning more about how to specifically do more regenerative style agriculture, which is also really cool. Zach, do you have a question?
What is regenerative style agriculture?
Oh my gosh, that's a really, basically instead of, or I don't know, any of the farmers out there want to answer this one?
I can take a stab at it. Our current, well, you could say 100 years ago, everyone did regenerative ag, I guess is one way to start it. It's a way in which you work the land with the resources that are at hand instead of importing whatever it is, chemicals, artificial things. Most of our industrial ag now use some external resource to make growing happen on the land, and most of that is artificial chemicals, which you probably know can be harmful to the health of the farm workers, can be harmful to the humans that consume the foods that have those chemicals on them. But regenerative, I think, tries to go even past organic, because organic can also bring a lot of external resources. Regenerative is like, how does the land renew itself with the resources that are available there?
Well
That makes
said.
sense.
Yeah, thank you. And that is not a hard and fast rule from what I understand in this act. But I was talking to a friend who also works on a farm, and I think he was saying that that's in this area. So I'm so sorry. There are people outside of the house working on something.
It's okay. We can hear you.
Okay, cool. I might have to go see what is going on in a second. But
You mean unauthorized people working on something?
I think they're authorized.
They were supposed to give us 24-hour notice, and he did not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how my plumber was the other day. Yeah. Showed up when I wasn't here.
Half of the class also lives in my house, so y'all won't be too offended. I'll go.
Carol, while they're looking into that, I can't find my drawing of the first postcard that we did. Not the second one that was the plantation, but what was the first one?
Well, if you have your date, I mean, my sketchbook has all sorts of things by date and not by topic, but That
No, I didn't do it in my sketchbook because my book for this class is really, really, really small. So I did it in one of my watercolor books or sketchbooks that are bigger, but I can't find it. But I
Okay,
don't know what I'm looking for.
All right, the date was 11/4, and we had been looking at pictures of the farmstead, and then we were looking at pictures of June and his wife. So
Yeah.
some of us,
That was the I thought that was the second one where we did the plantation.
that
But
was
I
the,
thought-
the plantation. The first one was June. Focus.
I'll tell you what, I'll look back into it later. I'm not going to be answering the door this second or anything. And I want to make sure we have time to draw. So let's go ahead and pivot over to how we're going to be designing our postcards. Because we could go on and on about this bill. This is something we've already been unpacking, as they mentioned, for weeks now. But I think we've gone over enough. They'll be also giving grants through specifically historically Black colleges and universities to help Black farmers, all kinds of good stuff. But what might our postcards look like to support this? So I came across this particular poster and I love the message and illustration. So I'm specifically going to show you guys how you might make a postcard with this quote, plant the seeds of peace with justice. I think it's a really timely message for this moment. We definitely need some peace and kind of coming together in this moment, and how better to do it than with starting with justice. It's in the Pledge of Allegiance, after all, justice for all. Another look that I really like that would be probably simple, especially for people who don't do art as much, is, now this is a postcard around voting, but my thought was, you know, whatever big word pops out to you, I was thinking justice, and then illustrating it with something behind it. And here's another postcard, Ditch Mitch, gotta love it. Perhaps just some flowers or farming vegetables in the background of a really simple message in the foreground. So I'm gonna show you guys how you might do that. Some other interesting quotes that you might want to put in the front, and you don't have to put a quote. I think that might just send a great message, but outgrow the status quo, that's a nice one. We can help each other flourish, very simple. Grow through what you go through. Any of these stand out, they could be options. Justice is what love looks like in public. It's a quote by Cornel West. That's a beautiful one. And this, I just liked the image, and get fresh with a farmer. Pretty cute. So with all of these in mind, so on my little postcards, I have a couple of examples that you might want to choose from today. So one would be a big word, just, you know, across the top of your postcard. So I chose justice. And in this postcard, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to leave the inside of the word white, and I'm going to come in with my watercolor pencils in the background, or maybe just some watercolors too. And I'm going to illustrate like some flowers, just give it a really bright, colorful background. My goal with this is I want these lawmakers to get these postcards and to be like, wow, would you look at that? Like, just for it to stand out more than your typical postcard that they get. Depending on the state you're in, we've got lots of states represented here today. Maybe your senator is already in favor of this. Maybe you're in Texas and it might be a little bit of something you have to be more persuasive about. But So that would be a
Jessica, are
great
you
look.
thinking we're only going to be sending these to our own representatives? I'm planning to send it to everyone.
I love that. I'm going to be sending them to everybody, but
Because
whatever.
in New York, it's not the same issue as it is in maybe Texas.
Absolutely. I'll be sending them to everyone, just for those people who might only be able to come to one class or send one postcard.
Uh-huh, got it.
They could start somewhere. But thanks, good point. This is going to be my version of Plant the Seeds of Peace with Justice. And I've got a little like seed going through the stages of becoming a flower. So if you like this, we could go through this today. And I thought maybe we could just put it to a vote. Those of you who feel comfortable just going for it, you can go ahead and get started with whatever design that you like, or even if you want to come up with something different. But is there one of these that people like better? And I'll take you through step by step how to illustrate and get some color on these.
Well, it's funny. I like the one on the right, except for I don't like the message. I would take out the piece because that's not what we're about. It's plant the seeds of justice.
Well, I think the idea is when you have justice, then everyone is coming from an equal ground, and then you can have peace. But until there is justice, then you're going to have a contingent that's upset, and then there won't be peace.
Okay, well, I don't have to do what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
I was just thinking, plant the seeds of equity with justice, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that would be.
Whatever is good for you.
Oh, I like that better.
Or yeah, you could even just say plant the seeds of justice if you want to cut out the middle phrase.
Cool, thanks.
Cool. Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is nothing on the front of this postcard is going to be evidence of what specifically you were addressing. I mean, one idea I'd had earlier, but it puts a lot more on the front. It was like Black farmers pushed out, pushed back justice for Black farmers or something, like it would have had a lot more words on the front and with the image.
Yeah, our original postcards did that. Our original ones had some more words on the front that said what this was about. Like we could do vote for justice for Black farmers.
Sure. Yeah, whatever feels right to you. And for those of you who are my returning students who will be coming back again and again, for sure we'll have some that are more specifically to that point. But otherwise, good. And on the back we can write, in the message, more specifically the details. Andrew, did you have something to say? You looked like you were getting up to mention something, maybe.
At the MLK monument in DC, it says something like peace isn't the absence of. Does someone know it? Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice. Just I heard people talking about peace and justice, and yeah, I like the words peace and justice together, how you have it. Anyhow.
Yeah, and that's a quote from someone else, that there was artist Ricardo Levins Morales. So yeah, I think in the continuation of this particular class, some of the postcards will be more specifically about the, Justice for Black Farmers Act. But at least for today, something simple for all levels of artists would be one of these two. Okay, so what's the vote? Do we want to do the plant the seeds or the justice?
I'm good with
I think you should ask Andrew and those guys, because Carol and Zachary and I can do whatever we want.
Cool. What do y'all think?
Andrew?
They're half done with theirs already. They're already going. They're blowing and going.
Okay, cool.
I want the instruction, but I can get it later from you.
Well, we're here now, so let's dive in. We'll do plant the seeds.
I got 2 cards. I can do one of them.
I like the plants one.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So the trickiest thing about getting started with a quote and actually having lettering on your postcard is making sure that everything ends up where you want it. Like, even though I started out in pencil and plotted things out, looking at this now, I'm like, gosh, I wish everything could just be moved over like a millimeter or, you know, a centimeter or something. So I always like to start with pencil first. And in this particular case, what I did was I kind of drew a really light line. Ooh, wrong pencil. Right now I'm just using a regular pencil, but you could use like a light colored watercolor pencil, like a pink or yellow or something. And I started with tiny little seed shapes. I'm gonna zoom in so maybe y'all can see that a little bit better. It's very light. And if you do one on one side, one in the middle, and one on the far right, that will help you even them out a little bit more. So I've got 5 little kind of dewdrop or teardrop shapes at the bottom. And I'm going to let the very first one just be a seed, so it's done. The second one gets a tiny little vertical line, kind of a space in between it, with like a droopy petal going down. And that's a little seed pod kind of ready to open up. The next one, the one that's right in the middle, goes vertical and then has a leaf, little baby leaf popping up out of it. Any little leafy shape will do. Little seed growth number 4, a little bit taller of a stem. And then on this one, I put 2 little leaves. They can go in whatever direction. You might even have a little little something growing out of that for continued stem. And then finally, the fun part in the very farthest seed out, and I need to scooch it a little bit over to the side. And since this is just the pencil prep, if you need to erase and move things around, you know, that's what you do at this phase. This is going to have another long, skinny stem. And I went ahead and put just a couple leaves coming out this side, and then more stem. And your flower can look however you like flowers to look. So I did sort of a fiery looking tulip thing here. You could, of course, do the traditional like 5 petal flower, but let's see. I think in this one I'll do kind of some blobby petals. The little kind of firework coming out. So it kind of looks like a petunia or something. So it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the more organic and loose these lines are, the more realistic it will look as like a real flower and not the kindergarten flower.
Oh, I'm in kindergarten.
So here, that's our flower illustration. And once you have it in pencil, then you can come back in with a Sharpie and outline it, or a pen, and erase your pencil marks. In the meantime, we now know where our lettering needs to fit in. So I'm going to learn from my mistake last time, and I'm going to just really lightly in pencil box out where I want my lettering to fit. So I want it to have a little bit of a gap on the sides, and I'm going to create a little space where I'm first going to write the words just regularly, and then I'm going to pump them up and make them wider with my outline. And while y'all are getting this started, I'm going to go answer the door and see what is going on with all this noise outside. 1 second.
Jessica,
Yeah.
sorry, they came unannounced. They want to fix some stuff on the outside and inside. It's up to you on how much they can do.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'll be right back. Y'all have fun chatting amongst yourselves for a sec.
It's hard to chat while you're drawing.
I felt motivated to put a few little rootlets underneath where the seed is.
You little what?
Rootlets.
Ah,
So it's just a seed and it's got roots.
I'm doing 4 of them on a page so that I can just bring them to Kinko and have them reproduce them and cut them.
You are so prolific. And I've always envied that, Judith.
Prolific. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. I just don't produce art quickly.
I'm not doing 4 today. I'm just saying
Oh,
no. I'm just blocking in 1 or 2 today that I might color in some other day. The problem with Jessica is I take too many classes with her. So then I have all these things that I like. We did these wonderful fun flowers Tuesday night, and now I cut out 4 different cards to send get well cards to people. And I want to do those, and I want to do this. It's really hard.
so many
Okay.
expectations.
And there are other things in life besides drawing, but I'm really loving this.
What, Judith? I don't know if I agree. I'm just kidding.
But there's any besides drawing.
Well, they have completely taken our front porch apart already. So apparently
What's the goal?
to level it out so that there's not a big slump when you walk out the door.
Probably good not to walk out the door onto no porch either.
Yeah.
I mean, a friend did that once. You know,
Oh,
when they
no. That's
were
scary.
renovations, it wasn't good.
Okay, so back at it. Plant the seeds of peace with justice. So one thing I like to do with lettering is pick the words that I want to emphasize and make them larger, and then the other words can be smaller. So I think justice is an important word here. I'm gonna write that all big. I'm just writing it like I normally would. And to create like cool bubble letters, after you have written the word just regularly first, you kind of go back and you can just make like a bubble, like you're kind of going back over the letter and giving it a little more meat. So let me zoom in on that a little bit. Like here's the original little J that I drew, and then I'm coming back on that and like fattening up the letter by going around it and widening those shapes. And you can kind of doctor it up and make it prettier as you do that. But before I do the whole justice thing, I'll say, okay, plant the seeds of peace with justice. I'm going to do plant the seeds smaller this time. My handwriting's weird, so everything I write looks better in all caps. So I'm going to write in all caps. plant. And then another thing that you see a lot in lettering is like little articles, like the word V, or little small words like
Say
of.
that again?
Words
that
like
again.
the, of, with. Sometimes you'll see those just written much smaller, like half size. So I'm gonna write my V really teeny tiny. So plant is big, the is small.
Got it. You can do that with color also, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah, like keep all the words the same size and then emphasize some words with color. That looks
Yeah.
great. So plant these seeds. So I've got to fit of peace with in this space. This is why we always start in pencil, because I might have to scooch things around. Plant the seeds. And then I'll make peace. I think I'll make peace all scripty. So everything else here is very block letter or just kind of like a Arial sort of font. That's out of the light. Plant these seeds of peace. Oh, it is going to fit. With justice. I think that's going to work. So I would recommend going in with your Sharpie or your black pen first. Make sure that it, if you're going to use watercolor, that your pen is not water soluble. Otherwise, you'll start putting water on it and it'll just like float away and you'll lose all the detail, and that's annoying. And then you can come back in later and add color with your watercolor pencil. Any artistic questions so far? Everybody doing all right? Need some feedback?
Silence.
Tina has a question.
So if I use something that is a water soluble ink, what do you suggest I do all my color with, since I can't watercolor it?
Well, you definitely could use colored pencil. That would probably be the main thing, unless you have a really a good hand for detail and you think you could come in and go around the ink without touching it too much. Or you could just let it bleed the first round through, and then after that happens, make that sort of a background shadowy look, and then go back over it again once it's dry to clean it up.
Wow, thank you.
Mhm. And with the scripty lettering, I like to kind of make some parts of the letters like wider and thicker. You can see how I'm kind of going back in and almost as if it was with calligraphy or something. This is just a not very sharp Sharpie, so it's not quite as scripty as I might like it, but that's okay. Any other anti-racist news you guys have been following or hearing about? Thinking about?
No, but I really was taken by the learning about the art of that guy Titus that I sent you,
Yes.
and his perspective on not erasing history, but changing the focus when
Mm.
looking at it, the
Yeah.
perspective. I thought that was really smart.
Yeah, so for those of y'all who haven't seen it, there's a great TED Talk by Titus Kaspar. It's called Can Art Amend History? It's a really moving TED Talk. And he actually,
Very short. It's
Yeah.
not the normal hour and a half. It's like 20 minutes or something. It's
Yeah.
definitely worth watching.
Can art amend history?
And it's posted
I
in
posted
the
it.
Community Network too.
Carol, I posted it in the course
Okay, thanks.
last night.
Great.
The most awkward lighting on this thing today. So we just have a few more minutes. Don't want to steal too much of y'all's time, but I'm bummed I didn't get to do my color yet. I'm going to finish this and I'll post in the group how these turned out. But does anybody want to show up what they've got so far?
Yes. Well, I haven't finished my flower, but just.
Ooh, vote to plant seeds of justice. I love it.
Ooh.
Great lettering there and cute little flower.
Yeah, I'm working on the flower now.
Mhm.
I want to
I
get
like-
it bigger.
I like getting the word vote on there.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted an action word.
Yeah. How about out at the farm? What do y'all have going on? Looks like everybody's lined up and ready. Ooh.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Plant
Hold it up.
seeds for peace.
Oh, I like that.
What a beautiful flower too.
Yeah.
Can you hold, oh, I couldn't see your flower.
It was like
off.
a droopy daisy kind of look.
Oh,
I tried to follow the instructions.
Yay.
Good. That's good.
looking great.
so I'll be there in a minute. This is a first attempt, but I like Judith. I might take that idea, Judith, if that's all right, because I really like
Sure.
putting it on there.
Sure.
So
Oh, lovely.
Very
I
nice.
got,
Colors.
I didn't get too
Like,
much done to make the lettering more powerful. I spent more time on the little plant. And then I mean, Justice could have for Black farmers under it
oh, she did do cool. That's
Absolutely.
okay.
to get a little more information on that front page.
Mhm.
Jack, you been doing anything over there?
Yeah, so I decided to take the statistic that 1.4% of American farmers are Black, and I was going to put that statistic up here on like against a barn, and then on the other side, write something along the lines of vote for the vote for the
Justice.
Justice for Black Farmers Act. Pardon me. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I
I
didn't think
like
about
that.
before.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, you could email that instead of sending a postcard.
Very
Oh, well, I
powerful.
mean, first draft, no.
Yeah, first draft, of course.
Well, for all of us, I think.
Yeah. Love it. Well, I'm gonna keep drawing here, but if anybody does need to run, we're almost at 11. I think it must be cold out there for the outdoor art room.
Well, I'm going to go have breakfast. It's 12 o'clock here.
Oh goodness, that's lunch.
Well, I usually have a class around 11 and I eat around 12. But I haven't had my coffee yet.
Uh-oh.
Have a good week, good weekend, at least everyone.
Hi, Judith. Good to see you.
Hopefully we will not have problems on Sunday. We'll see.
Yeah,
Everybody
Well-
stay safe.
great to see you. Until
I'd
next
love-
time.
If the farmers have time to, I would love to hear what's being farmed out there. Do Andrew or any of the other farmers have a moment to say that?
You want to say?
Well, we've got all kinds of brassicas going. We're starting the tomatoes. We're keeping our fingers crossed about the nights going below 32. We've got sheep, and we've got chickens, and we've got a crazy turkey, and
Now, is that for
Wow.
your
Yeah,
own
and
use?
more.
Is this all for your own use or do you sell?
we sell
Yeah, sell at market.
Like a
Farmer's
farmer's market?
in Houston.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Yeah. Yeah. There's like 1 to 2 acres of vegetable production. The sheep go all the way around the farm trying to poop everywhere. That's our regenerative ag aspect, the fertilizer. And then they raise chickens for eggs and raise them for meat as well.
Uh-huh.
And there's some fruit trees around. There's a pretty pond. There's wild mushrooms.
there's good
Wow.
folks.
There's good folks from different strokes.
Sounds awesome. How long has the land been farmed?
We've been out here since '03, so I guess we started really farming in '06.
Uh-huh. So you've been able to build up the soil.
Yeah, after I destroyed it, we did. I didn't know anything,
Yeah.
Gotta
There's a
start
lot of them.
somewhere.
but we've
Wow.
learned a lot, and the soil is coming back.
Yeah.
It's beautiful out there. Me and Zach got to go plant a little bit, I guess a couple weeks ago, and it's
It's
just
great.
gorgeous, and little baby goats and puppies. It's pretty magical.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been
Oh,
lovely
Fabulous.
to glimpse.
Fabulous,
Laughing
you hear?
Frogs
Fabulous.
Frogs.
Oh, one question. Am I
Mhm.
real?
Yeah.
What is the number of this bill y'all keep referring to?
Let's see. It's called the Justice for Black Farmers Act. I'm not seeing a farmer on it.
Go to the Cory Booker site and it might
Yeah.
have it.
I'll get it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there's some numbers up here, but
I'll Google it. You don't have to go.
Send it. Yeah. Send it
doing
to us if
number
you find
stuff.
it. Whoever finds it.
I want to go-
okay, sure thing with you.
Great.
Well,
Everybody, well,
thank
thanks so
Jessica,
much for coming, and
I
we'll
have a
be
question.
back at it next week. Yeah.
Do you know, it just occurred to me, I'm drawing 4 fronts on one side of the paper. I wonder if Kinko's can actually print front and back. I'll have to go to them before I get further into this project and ask them.
Yeah.
but you'd want the back printed too.
Mm-hmm. And if not, you can always just draw yourself like a line down the back of your postcard, and write your address on one side and your message on the other. The back, even if it's blank, as long as you put the stamp back there, it should be okay.
No, but if I'm going to be sending 100 of these or more,
Yes,
I
just
don't have,
big.
that's gotten a little out of hand. All right, I'll go to Kinko's and ask them before I go any further.
Awesome.
Love that idea, Judith. Get it. Send it to all of them.
Yeah, I can also duplicate and send them out to you, Andrew, and you can write messages and send them out.
If you send them to me, I'll write them. Yeah.
You got
Okay.
his address
You got a
already.
deal. You got a deal.
Yeah, I have a compromised right wrist, so writing out all the addresses and stuff would be hard for me. So if I could spread the writing part, the address part, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I can share some with other people too.
Okay,
Sophie said she'll help.
Yay.
great. We got a plan.
Yay.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you, Jessica. That was cool.
My pleasure. See y'all
Nice
soon.
meeting you guys.
We're gonna go get in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.